Welcome to People Are Everything, the show that's a bit like Desert Island Discs, but rather than bring music, I ask my guests to bring the 5 people that have shaped the person they are today. And today we are joined by Chris Grimes. I had the great pleasure of being one of Chris's guests not that long ago. He's got a wonderful show. It's called The Great Listening To Show. And he brings so much to it. He brings props. He brings his theatrical background. He brings a lot of play, but he also brings a lot of sincerity and a genuine interest in his guests. And so you'll hear from this episode that we connected on so many levels. He's a really wonderful, warm guy, multi-talented and multifaceted. So, listen to Chris Grimes. I mean, he's just an absolute delight. Enjoy. Hello, Chris. Welcome to People Are Everything. How are you today? Are you all right?
The word is tickety-boo.
Tickety-boo.
Stick your thumbs up and say it's tickety-boo, and everything will all be fine.
Do you know, I've been looking forward to this because I knew you would start with something like that. And you are such a ray of sunshine generally, which is very apt because we have the most beautiful spring morning to record on. So everything's lining up for us, Chris. I'm really hoping that you're going to enjoy this as much as I enjoyed being a guest on your show. So let's talk about that for a second, because I like to begin with how we all are connected, because I sort of believe in all of this. I believe in the interconnectedness of us all. And I think I noticed you, first of all, because you were commenting on a mutual friend of ours. I think it was a Mark McCartney podcast. I think it was my very first one. And I think you were very gracious on it. I think you said something nice about it on the old LinkedIn. And I just thought, oh, he's nice, looks like a nice guy. And I just sort of, checked out your profile. I hope you didn't mind. And, saw that you were a fellow podcaster and all the other work you do, and did that rare thing, I suppose, which I just reached out to you and said, hello, you look nice. Would you want to come on my podcast, please? And you said, all right, then, would you like to come on mine? And that's kind of how it started, wasn't it? Something like that?
It was a very joyful, very spontaneous bit of spontaneity. And reciprocity is one of my favourite words. So I love reciprocating. So happy smoke is another way of me describing it. What makes me look good makes you look good, makes me look good. And so the world grows.
Do you know, I still haven't mastered reciprocity. What is it?
Reciprocity. What you give out, you will get back.
All right, I need to practice, because it is a good word, but I just can't get my head around it. I never can say it in the spur of the moment. No, forget it.
No, let's do it again. So it's reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
How to reciprocate is through the gift of reciprocity.
But I'm all about that anyway, aren't you, Chris? I just believe in that.
Yes, you are. It's funny you can't say the word when actually you're personifying that word all the time.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how else to be. I mean, I just don't. I mean, and I don't mean it in a transactional way. I know people talk about feeling that someone's transactional with you.
Yes.
I hope I don't come across like that, because I don't feel it. I'm just naturally curious, and I'm quite an excitable person. I think you are too. That's the vibe I got when I first met you. And we swapped voice notes, and I love a voice note. You're a voice noter.
Well, I'm such a, it's all about the patter for me. And so blagging and talking and communicating and improvising and communicating. I love storytelling, and the currency and the elixir of all connection is energy. And I certainly, you mentioned sunshine. I found it very easy to be in your orbit immediately, because that analogy of whether human beings are radiators or drains.
Yes.
You're very much a radiator, where you can sort of warm your hands up in your presence type thing.
Oh, likewise, Chris. I felt the same way about you. We should probably stop all this now. We're going to people are going to start blushing and saying, come on, guys, that's enough of that. Let's get on with the show. So you know the format. It's I'm going to try and uncover, or you're going to share, the 5 people that have shaped how you feel have shaped you.
Yes.
And before I get into sort of how you came up with your 5, etc., I always like to give my guests a little bit of a platform and say, right, okay, this is your few minutes to tell everybody who you are, what you're about, what you're up to.
That was my cue, wasn't it? Yes,
That
so I
was
can do
your
that now.
cue.
Yes. So I'm a passionate communication skills person. I'm an actor, drama teacher, and comedy improvisation performer by training and background. And that informs everything that I do. And energetically, in the last 3 to 4 to 5 years, I've stumbled upon an energetic space called the clearing, which is where all good questions come to get asked, all good coaching conversations all get to happen, and also where all good podcasting takes place. And it's a clearing, which is just an energy, which is like a comedy improvisational space. It's everything I do now emanates and transmits from a place called the clearing. So I love podcasting, and we riff on desert island discs together.
We do.
Yours is, rather than being on an island, we turn up wherever with our 5 people, our bunch of fives, our squad. And my podcast too, the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius, is like desert island discs, but in a clearing and with stories rather than music. So I love what I immediately loved about our connection was the fact we're both riffing off a sort of a different version, a variation on a wonderful theme of desert island discs.
And the wonderful theme of people, isn't it? So I know there's
People
more.
Are Everything is a great title because of that, because they are, they are the ones that have connected us and nudged us along the path to where we are now.
Well, tell us more about that kind of where coaching crosses into sort of your performance side of yourself. How did that come to be? How did you what do I want to say? Translate those skills and your acting skills. How did it come together?
Well, going back a couple of steps, when I first actor trained and drama teacher trained, it's being in a room, being present with people, to be or not to be, is about giving people a damn good listening to. There's a lovely quote about facilitation, which is the best resource a good facilitator can bring into the room is themselves. When an actor's truly present on stage, it's all about serving the story, not about being marvelous. And so there's this idea of generosity, so reciprocity is in there again, about being truly present and able and willing to listen. Some of my ancient acting teachers, there was an ancient European mystic called Rudy Shelley. Acting teach you, I will. And he would say, acting is reacting. And that informs, that was something that was first said to me that I never forgot. Coaching is about reacting. It's about listening. And, my show now, the Good Listening To show, so cool, because I've always thought coaching, to your question, is all about just giving somebody a damn good listening to, but also getting people to elicit and coach their story out of them is all about giving, a fellow human being a damn good listening to. And one of my founding premises of what I'm up to now, particularly energetically, is that everybody has an interesting story to tell, provided you give them the courtesy of a damn good listening to. So it's also a comedy improvisational theatre in the round space with an attitude of yes and, yes and, yes and, yes and, as opposed to no but, no but, no but, no but. So I'm just loving this idea that there's an energetic space which contributes energy like positive eons to storytelling and about people and about connection.
Yeah, I think that's why we just hit it off straight away, Chris, because I'm all about that too. I was thinking about this the other day because there's a lot of conversation at the moment about AI. AI this, AI that. And I love a bit of AI. I don't mind it. ChatGPT is my friend. I ask it questions and it gives me answers. And thankfully, I've got a little bit of life in terms of experience where I can sort of take what I want from it. But and there's a lot of talk about, just how many things are going to be taken away from us as human beings and, replicated by robots. And, people talk about art and they talk about music and theatre and acting. And I'm just not convinced about that. I think that human beings fundamentally know the difference. And even if they can't tell when someone said, someone plays you something, if then someone said, that was done by a computer, it's an instant turn off, isn't it?
Yes.
You're mentally shifting from being moved and impressed and in awe of to, oh, it's just a computer. And my last little thing I want to say, and I hope you resonate with this, is I just think that the more technology advances, the more humanity is going to get more connectedness. Because I think we're going to start to really value, like you said, true listening, true showing up, paying attention, asking genuine questions with genuine curiosity. I think that's going to be the new currency. It's going to be the new thing that we all crave because, well, everything else will be taken care of.
And I completely agree. And I'm still applying the currency of it's not ChatGPT, it's me. And ChatGPT wouldn't say the word kumquat at this moment. That was me being totally spontaneous there. I know we can all fly spontaneity and say to ChatGPT, be spontaneous, but there you go. I totally agree. And I think it's all about connection. And one of my favorite quotes on facilitating is it's all about the relationship, stupid, which again echoes really well with people or everything.
Very good. All right. Well, how did you find this? My next question is always, how did you find the process of choosing? Because no one's forced me to do this yet, and I've already said I've got a couple of people who help me with this thing.
Yes.
And they're always like, when are you going to do yours? And I was like, oof. And
I've just crossed that line, by the way. A very, very old and dear friend who I did my first ever glow up by broadcasting from now on in some studios, in a professional podcast studio in Bristol, where I'm actually not today. I'm at home, which I'm extra relaxed. But a very old friend called Neil Bett has just offered, and he's the first person I've said yes to where he's going to sort of do a bit of reverse psychology, and I'm going to be experiencing my own structure very shortly.
Oh, well, I think we should both have to do it. I think we should be made to do it. So tell me then, how did you find preparing for this? Choosing the 5, how did you find it?
Well, I loved it from the point of view of I've now appreciated that it's quite an enjoyable big ask of people to really focus. I've had a couple of people who've just sort of switched off because I'm not doing that, far too much preparation, in which case I think, fantastic, you're not right for this program. Because I think thinking it through is important. So I found it fascinating to, as you mentioned, 5 people, a bit like ghosts in the background, there's actually a full crowd behind them because they all then represent other choices, other beings that almost ghost-like. Those old, when you watch a sort of an old photograph and then people begin to fade as they die.
Mm-hmm.
There is a sort of ghost gallery of people behind what I'm going to be telling you.
Oh, fascinating. Oh, I can't wait. All right. Well, no one said that before, Chris, so I'm now fascinated. I want to know how you're going to approach this. Okay. All right. Well, should we just get into it then? Tell us who's number 1 on the list.
Okay. Number 1, cashier number 1. Coming in at number 1 is Stan Laurel.
Oh, okay.
Of Laurel and Hardy fame and beauty. Stan Laurel is my all-time comic hero. He's like a factory default setting of a serious happy place for me. Just his face makes me happy. A bit, I mentioned there's a gallery, people like Dick Van Dyke. I know Dick Van Dyke was asked by Stan Laurel if ever there was a biopic of his life, would he like to play him? My first ever theatre notice was wonderful comic timing with shades of Stan Laurel. So I took that compliment when I first did a Chekhov play. I was playing a hapless hypochondriac called Lomov. But anyway, why I love Stan Laurel so much is I was 7 years old and living in Uganda, and I lived in Uganda between my being 2.5 and 10. And round about 6, 7 years old, there was a black and white TV set that hummed into action. And then onto the screen, traversing the screen, was Stan Laurel. And he just made me immediately happy. I mean, the duo is the partnership and the collaboration is so important because Laurel and Hardy are my perfect collaborative comedy duo, I think. But Stan Laurel particularly reminds me a bit of my grandfather. He's just very in my DNA. He reminds me to keep it kind, to keep it humble, to keep it funny, to keep it hapless. And I love slapstick, just the haplessness. And then when the brick sort of slaps Oliver Hardy on the head, if they're doing things in a chimney stack or whatever, the breaking of the fourth wall and, looking straight to camera as you share their pain. They just did it perfectly for me.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
To this day, Stan Laurel is like a Chris Grimes factory default setting of a serious, happy being an entity. And he's so informed. I mean, Laurel and Hardy, there are a couple of favorite films. I think it was County Hospital I first saw. But then there's a wonderful, wonderful one I've discovered and been reminded of. Laurel and Hardy's Brats is where they're playing their own children. And the technology of the day was they made these gargantuan props. So extra large, chair, extra large beds, so they could become miniature. And it informed the comedy improvisation company that I now run, called Instant Wit, which I've been doing for 35 years now. It's called Instant Wit, and there's a hilarious pun on Instant Whip. And the first ever photographs we ever did, inspired by Laurel and Hardy, is we miniaturized ourselves because of a hilarious pun of Instant Whip, Instant Wit, into a bowl of blancmange. And of course, that was all done with digital technology, and we just did a JPEG miniaturization. Whereas I was really enamored by the fact that back in the day, they would have made those enormous props. So I was thinking macro when we went micro. So anyway, it's informed me in so many ways and keeps on doing it.
Oh, wonderful choice. Uganda. I didn't know about that. We're going to go on to Stan Laurel in a minute.
Yeah.
But I want to know about Uganda first, because I didn't know that about you. What
you
drew
haven't
you
asked
there?
before.
Where did you grow up?
So I was born up north at a place near. When you talk about where you're born, you end up saying a bigger place, then get smaller. So I'll cut to. I was born in a place called Saltburn, which is close to Redcar, which is close to Middlesbrough, an area of which is called Northamptonshire, where my parents were from. And at my age equivalent of 28, and I'm 62 now, but my mum and dad emigrated to Uganda with 3 children under the age of 8, of which I was one, to Uganda. And my dad was the first of his family to go to university. He achieved a bit of social mobility. My dad is going to be one of my people, but I'll tell you, I'll keep my powder dry about that. But yes, my dad was a teacher for the British Council, and between my being 2.5 and 10, I lived in Uganda. And then, those that know the history, it's just been recently the 50th anniversary of this, but we lived in a time of the political coup when Idi Amin overthrew Milton Obote. All the Ugandan Asians were kicked out of the country. And I was living in a place called Jinja, Jinja, which is 50 miles away from Kampala. And the fighting was getting closer. And the disappearances were becoming more prevalent, and so it was a dangerous time. And so we got out of there lickety split.
Wow.
Yes, it's very, very formative, very exciting time. By bizarre coincidence, I was also friends with the 2 younger brothers of Adrian Edmondson, of comic fame, because his parents too were in Uganda as well at the same time.
Okay, fine. Well, I look forward to hearing a bit more about that when we speak about your dad. So back to Stan Laurel.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I grew up, I'm a little bit younger than you, but I grew up with Laurel and Hardy. And I don't know, that there are still people with funny bones like that, people that you can just look at and laugh before they do anything. And I remember that famous sort of stage walk-on by Spike Milligan, where the audience just laughed for minutes, and he hadn't done anything yet because he just had funny bones. He walked on the stage and they just couldn't stop laughing. And I think Stan Laurel definitely had that. And I love, my favourite one was the one where they just ate the boiled eggs in hospital. I mean,
yes, that's County Hospital. That's the first.
That's the one I think. Yeah, and I'm just thinking, if you said to a youngster now, we fell over ourselves when we were kids and still would now, about a guy just eating boiled eggs and putting salt and pepper on. And I mean,
there's that famous line of hard-boiled eggs and nuts. And he can't believe that he's come to hospital and brought him just hard-boiled eggs and nuts. And then he just doesn't give them to Oliver Hardy at all. He just sits there nomming them for himself.
It's just genius.
Beautiful comic business.
Absolute geniuses. Wonderful. Well done. Good opener.
Has nobody ever said that before so far?
No.
Stan Laurel. Yes.
No. That's good. I like it. So number 2 then, please. Who would that be?
I might do a bit of a yin-yang at this point, because I quite like the idea of bookending comic resonance. So I mentioned Dick Van Dyke, but my living equivalent of Stan Laurel, who's another of my people, is Michael Palin.
Okay.
Monty Python, Life of Brian, just Monty Python.
Yeah.
At the age I was in my early teens was almost like how I said I was 7 when I first experienced Stan Laurel. we all need to be very attuned to 7-year cycles in our lives, because apparently we are cellularly regenerated every 7 years. Your teeth are the same, but you're a new person. So I think wind myself forward 7 years from being 7 and Stan Laurel, around about 14, 15 when I was at school. That's when Monty Python was kicking off. And even day one of my podcast 5 years ago, I said, the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius, the day I can talk to Michael Palin, we'll all know that I've made it. I'm getting closer. I don't quite know why, but I've not actually I've explicitly asked him, but I have interviewed his best friend, a wonderful colossus of the music industry called John Altman. And we're just working on whether I can take him and Michael out for lunch and I can ask him directly. But on day one of the podcast, and I've reincorporated it several times through, I've said the day I can speak to him, we'll all know I've made it from that point of view. But anyway, Michael Palin just is a just a wonderfully kind, funny. He's got qualities of Stan Laurel in him. So there's a sort of a living personification. Other people I find funny, as you mentioned. You reminded me that Tommy Cooper had very funny bones.
Oh,
and my
completely.
granddad would just, it's the most I can ever remember my granddad laughing when Tommy Cooper came on stage. I was at college with Bill Bailey. He is the funniest person I've ever met, Bill Bailey. But I've been to see Michael Palin. I'm interviewing Rob Brydon soon on my show, and I saw Rob Brydon on stage at the Bristol Old Vic interviewing Michael Palin. On that very day, I was quite jealous, thinking, "Oh, I want to be doing that." Yeah. So I think I'm getting closer to it. But anyway, Michael Palin just does it for me. Just chimes and resonates as being a really decent, kind, wonderful, generous human being who's also incredibly gifted with just connecting and building good relationships very quickly, whether he's traveling or his comedy that I enjoy. And Life of Brian is the ingenious film.
Oh, it's a classic. I mean, I still do Life of Brian quotes now. Every now and then I'll just go, he's not coming out for no reason. Just tickles me.
He's not the Messiah.
He's a very naughty boy. Do you know what I mean? You just and you're just randomly living your life, but it will just come into your mind. And the brilliance of that show, and also I guess at the time, very sort of controversial, and it got a lot of heat at the time, didn't it? Very sort of blasphemous, thought very blasphemous by certain communities, and but which is so kind of, I don't know, such a paradox when you think of Michael Palin, who he is and how he lives and all the great, wonderful things he puts into the world, that anyone would think that he was anything else other than a force of wonderful, contribution. But
yes.
It was.
And what's the antidote to all of it, the through line is kindness. There's no malicious intent with Life of Brian.
No.
It's actually an incredibly, gifted intellectual cut through the sort of bullshit, I suppose, in order to, just use comedy as a way of challenging societal norms is just a really clever thing.
Oh, completely. I mean, the central tenet is just be kind to each other. Just be nice. I'm not the Messiah. Yes. I'm just a nice bloke, and just be nice. So
you can follow me from that point of view. I'm a decent being. Be kind.
Yeah. Well, no, definitely. Oh, wonderful. I'm glad he's made it on the list. And I just feel like you are going to meet him. You're on that path now. You've got Rob. There was John Plowman recently as well. You're kind of in that circle, and I think a lot of the sort of people who are into the podcasting space, there seems to be, it's almost a bit like the 10,000 hours thing, isn't it?
Yes.
The Malcolm Gladwell
10,000 hours to mastery, yes.
Yeah. So it's like you have to put the time in. You've got to commit to it. And then, good things will come. So I know you're quite well down the road with podcast. How many episodes have you done now? It's quite a few.
Very excitingly, I'm about 250 episodes in now. And I'm really in it for the long game, because as you quite rightly said, the more you do it, the more you realize that you've differentiated. And I don't know if you've heard the story of Helsinki Bus Garage. Have you heard this? It's an allegory about anybody in the creative endeavor. Is this all right? I just riff on this.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Apparently at Helsinki Bus Garage, there's an apocryphal story, and I read this in The Guardian about 10 years ago. There are 11 bus platforms all about, in fact, sorry, no, it's 21 bus platforms all about to set off in exactly the same direction. and they're going to go in exactly the same direction for about 11 bus stops, and then they sort of dissipate off to their different destinations. Most people in a creative endeavor, e.g. podcasters, get on board a bus. I'm doing a podcast. And then round about bus stop 6, 7, 8, they get impatient going, right, I'm going to get off and start to ply my wares and try and get funding and sponsorship now. Or if I'm a photographer or anyone in the creative endeavor, they get off the bus and start to share their wares. And they go, oh, okay, you're a podcaster. Well done. Oh, have you seen Julia Duthie's podcast? That's fantastic. You go, who? And they go, oh, damn, I was thinking of that. Then they go back to the bus stop and they start again. The punchline is, and am I allowed to swear?
Of course, do what you like.
The punchline is, stay on the fucking bus.
Yeah.
Because you can only truly appreciate what you're doing that's got any value or difference once you've gone off into the delta of trying to find out any differentiating factor. And so you stay on the bus is so important. And in fact, it's informed so much of my career because I'm still on the bus, because I believe that fundamentally I'm onto something creativity that's just got my own unique slant on the world. And so I would just say it's to give everybody succor, whatever you do, stay on the bus.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I don't intend on changing my format. Sorry, everybody. If you're expecting innovation in the next few years, there won't be any. There'll just be more people to talk to. Because yes. I think the thing that both you and I will never run out of is fascinating people to talk to.
Yes.
And your format has a structure. And I wanted to look back on that, actually, because you're right. Coming onto yours, I had to really think about it. It's if you want to take it at a superficial level, I mean, and you do this yourself, you're very sort of self-deprecating with it. It's like, oh, I have got these props and I've got this, and you put a lot of play into it. But actually, underneath that, there's a lot of depth to it. It's a lot of, you have to really think hard about the questions you're really asking underneath the kind of theatrical structure that you've put in there. So I remember, I don't prepare for many things at all, Chris. And you had the honor, really, you didn't know this, but I actually prepared for your podcast. And it was really, it was quite, what can we say? Didn't come that naturally. I had to really think about it. And I think all the best things are like that. But no, I like that Helsinki bus thing because, I think, you hear about these bands that are overnight successes and they've done 1,000 gigs already. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? It's just stay in the band, stay in the bus, do the thing that you feel, most natural with, most committed to.
Yes.
And the thing you most enjoy, I don't know about you, Chris, but I love this, don't you? I really love talking to people in a long format and really asking them who they are and who are the people that they love. I can't think of anything better, apart from maybe doing it in the pub, which maybe that's the innovation.
It genuinely feels like a very parallel universe that we're in, and it's wonderful because it's a bit of a 1 + 1 = 3. So I love the fact that we have decided to reciprocate.
Yeah.
And indeed, I was very chuffed. I'm always very chuffed and flattered when guests have thought deeply about it. Because within my structure, which is playful, there is an invocation deliberately to go as deep as you like, where you like, when you like.
Good. All right. Well, I'm definitely I'm on the bus to stay. But certainly I've got a long way to go before I catch up with you. Brilliant. All right. Well, we've done.
And nor is it a race, nor do you need to catch up. And that's the obvious point.
Oh, good point. We can't.
Yes.
There's no need for that. I don't, honestly, I'm in such a sort of pleasure bubble with the whole thing. I haven't done that looking left and right.
If it gives you an emotional kick, that's all you need. And I know that I get a soul chime in being here, and I get a soul chime in doing it. And, sometimes pockets of happiness in life, which you probably know are called glimmers. If you find that I keep glimmering whenever I'm giving somebody a damn good listening to, so I know I'm onto something.
Oh, I like that. Glimmering. I'm going to put that down somewhere. All right, let's do number 3 then. Who's number 3?
Okay, now number 3 is, I suppose, informs the work that I do. And are you allowed to have a bit of a two-headed monster? It's cheating because I'm going to give you 2 people, but it comes to the same conclusion. Is that allowed?
Oh, absolutely. People have done much worse already.
Well, it's a combination because of the work that I love to do as a facilitator and coach in helping people with storytelling. It's a combination of Maya Angelou because of her beautiful quote, which is, people never remember what you say, slightly bastardized what I'm doing, but this is what I've taken to it, and it's up to me. But people never remember what you say, but they'll always, always remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
And she has a wonderful spirit, and even the quote, be a rainbow in somebody else's cloud. You mentioned a ray of sunshine earlier on, that's all about a universe of sunlight is much better. Stay in the light. The clearing is a light space. So Maya Angelou, for all that quality of just a beautiful human being, as we know, she was Oprah Winfrey's mentor. She was Barack Obama's mentor. The famous seminal book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. All of that. She's just a beautiful soul. And ascend, and I will rise. There's just poetry and beauty in, things I've witnessed her bring to bear. And alongside her, for slightly different, it's Dale Carnegie and the brilliant book that informs so much of what I now do in terms of the realm of personal impact. Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was the first ever book of its type to talk about how to build good relationships. And it was published in 1938, as I'm sure everybody knows, and it's been republished again and again and again. But it's got so much psychology in there, which is just a really good way to live your life. And if everyone ran their careers and lives through the lens of, I know my stuff, I demonstrate that I care, and I share a smile. I'll just say that again. I know my stuff. I demonstrate that I care, and I share a smile. It also allowed me to infer, my own opinion about personal impact is the afterburn of you, me, everybody. When you've left the building, the room, the interaction, the Zoom room, the team meeting, when you've left the building, what do you leave behind? And people are thinking three things about us: good things, bad things, or nothing at all. And so Dale Carnegie and Oprah Winfrey is a sort of two-headed monster. At the beginning of a slide deck, I like to say it's all about the relationship, stupid. And at the end of a slide deck, often the last quote I'll leave people with before drop the mic, good night, is people will never remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. So that's why I'd like to introduce a double-headed monster, but it sort of pulls into the same clearing of impact and how I can help people as a coach, Maya Angelou and Dale Carnegie.
Well, I love that. And I first got to know Maya Angelou through, again, if we're talking about podcasts, one of my favorites called We Can Do Hard Things. And it was started by Glennon Doyle and her partner, who's Abby Wambach. And then her sister was sort of like the producer, but has now become as part of it. And I've listened to every single one from the beginning. And, from the beginning of when they were first posted, not discovered it now and then gone back. And Maya Angelou is referenced on that podcast all the time. And yeah, you go back to this the tenet of this thing: who are the people behind the people? Well, if Maya Angelou, if Barack Obama does not put Maya Angelou on his list, yes, I'll tell him off when I meet him and interview him.
That's great. Yes.
And Oprah.
It shall be so.
Oprah, I'll give her a telling off and say, hang on, how could you not introduce her? I'm just kidding. But and that whole idea of energy, the energy that how you make someone feel. We feel each other before we even communicate, don't we? You know someone's energy before they've even said anything.
I don't know if you've heard that, but dogs can be a conduit to whether someone's a decent human being or not sometimes.
Well, my dog certainly is. That maybe it's something to do with pheromones. I'm pretty sure that's what dogs are all about, but it's something to do with just how we radiate. And we know we do, because you can walk into a room and you are naturally attracted to a certain type of person, aren't you? And there's a lot of talk about charisma at the moment.
That's the word I'm thinking. Yeah.
I've been really thinking about that a lot lately, because it used to be, I don't know, the classic kind of idea of charisma was that the loudest, the most confident, the most brash, the most, obvious person had the charisma. And I think that's all turned on its head recently. I think people are starting to really notice that charisma is actually, again, playing to you and I and what we're doing, is about genuinely taking an interest in other people and being present. and having the sort of solidity in you to
Yes.
sort of stand and just be, and have the confidence to communicate openly and warmly with vulnerability, and just kind of really give people a damn good, what do you call it? Damn good listening to.
Yes. It plays into the idea that in order to lead from without, and be charismatic, you've got to lead
Yeah.
from within. So if you get your own soul ducks in
In
line,
order. Yeah.
get your own values and your own reason for being, your own purpose imperative to sort of spill forth, then that becomes charismatic if it's a very attractive force, if it's coming from a kind, intended, well-positioned place.
Right, and now I'm not going to do my version of your Michael Palin. If I ever get to interview Glennon Doyle, then you'll know I've made it, because she's top of my list. If you're listening, Glennon, one day I'm coming up. I'm coming for you. No, I'm a huge fan of hers, and I just love everything she's about. So,
I'm
wonderful.
very happy to bear witness to you saying that out loud, and it shall be so, I'm sure.
Let's manifest, eh? All right, good. Let's move on to number 4.
So number 4, I'll just return to my dad, partly because of, Colin Grimes,
Okay.
who once famously danced the night away with Princess Margaret when he was head of the Ball Society at Keele University. I had quite a sort of up, down, a complicated, shall we say, relationship with my dad. But interestingly, he's very much in my psyche at the moment because he's absolutely pulling me towards my future, because he died about 7 months ago.
Oh.
So yes, he was a trailblazer in the 1960s, took us to Uganda, been a trailblazer, an inveterate committee man, always trying to fix things, make things better, get the sand out of the gears of things running smoothly. A brilliant man. And I recently recorded him. It's about 3 or 4 years ago now, but I recorded him for where my podcast is going next. There is a series strand within the Good Listening To show called Legacy Life Reflections, which is to record the story of somebody near, dear, or close to you for posterity, without any morbid intention, lest we forget before it's too late, using the unique storytelling structure of the space that I've curated. And my father, Colin Grimes, as I keep mentioning, deliberately reincorporating, was wonderful in that 5 years ago, he was a very willing guinea pig. He knew exactly what I was up to, but I actually, with the gift of hindsight, got him in the halcyon days of his 80s before he slipped into a crater of declining health. And he's now become a bit of a mascot because it's extra poignant that Colin Grimes, I've got a photograph of him, which is a moment of glimmer, of true happiness. He and Mum went to Madeira for Christmas and New Year for 30 years. And last Christmas, this would be 2023, there's a wonderful photograph of him saying cheers to Mum across the table. And it's literally Colin Grimes, cheers to a good life. Because in that moment, he was declining in his health, but in that moment, he was truly happy. And that's become a sort of mascot moment for me in capturing that, knowing that I can genuinely help people capture the stories of those that are precious to us for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late. And I'm pretty sure my dad would be thrilled and very happy, because he was a very willing guinea pig, that he's become the mascot of Legacy Life Reflections.
Well, I love that whole concept. Well, firstly, I'm sorry that you had this loss so recently. I'm sure that's still very much a raw emotion for you. So thank you for sharing that. And then I'm, hearing you talk about it. I interviewed Brian Murray recently, and he's like my oldest friend. He's 92, and he'd written his son had asked him to do a book based on answering just a few questions, and the book kind of gets made. And I'm sure there's an AI equivalent of this now there, where people can just, ask a few questions and a few answers come back, and then suddenly you've got a life book about your loved one. But there's something about the video, the audio, the interaction, the warmth, the exchange, the realness of having a conversation with someone that you care about or you want to know about. And as always, the people closest to us they're usually the ones who we know the least about, because it's awkward, isn't it? Tell us about when you were a kid, Dad, or who was the most important person to you, or, where do you feel most at peace? That's awkward when you've grown up with someone and you're some of us can do it, but mostly people don't. They just say, do you want a cup of tea, right? So to have a third party sit for an hour, whatever it might be, and take the time and the care to pull out of that person, deeply revealing, interesting things, and as a keepsake for the next generation, and back to your point about storytelling, it's how we've always done it. Before we could have, pen and paper, we told stories of our ancestors, and those that we are inheritors. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about inherited traits, and it's so funny. What we don't believe sometimes that we can be, chips off old blocks, but we talk about it so casually, that we are all a product of our ancestry. But of course we are, and those stories that are told down and down and down and down the generations are exactly who shape us. Those people we are the vanguard of those, whatever it is, 150,000 people before you. So,
and the clearing in which the storyscape unfolds is like a metaphorical gathering around a campfire.
yeah,
It's a place of warmth, and then it's very much about human connection. But the super objectivity as well, of, as you say, someone outside looking in, but pulling people through a unique storyscape
yeah,
that makes people think deeply, is where it's a very precious thing.
And I imagine you bring all your play with it as well, because I think people get a bit scared, I think, when they get to the end of their time. And I think all the loved ones around them get very scared about their loss, their pending loss. So to bring your kind of sunshine, demeanor to it, I can imagine that's very, very beautiful. So,
And very important, we talk about halcyon days, and not
yeah,
I've mentioned glimmers, but not so much. But it's the time in your life when you remember being at your absolute happiest.
yeah, I love it. Well, listen, I wish you all success for that. And
Thank you.
I'm going to put a few of my oldies your way and see what
And in
else we
fact,
can.
where I'm going straight after we've recorded is my beautiful brother-in-law, called Christopher Cornwell Photography, is going to do some filming of me in a white cycloramic studio, where I'm going to, record the holding video for the legacylifereflections.com website. So that will
Amazing.
be done today. So I'm very much taking Dad with me into the clearing this afternoon, and I'm delighted to have Colin Grimes as my fourth person.
Wow. Okay. Good old Colin. Well, I'm very glad that you managed to capture him in all his glory before he passed. Okay. Finale number 5. Who's that?
Finale, the last person I have to mention is my glorious, wonderful wife, Janie Grimes, who has been an utter constant to me throughout. When you suddenly realize, gosh, I say suddenly realize, but when you appreciate that you've been with somebody, I'm 62 now, but we've been together more than half my life and half her life. And when someone knows you, let's be honest, better than you know yourself, it's just great to have somebody who's an anchoring constant and can bear with me as a creative whilst I go through all sorts of wibbly wobbly woo-wah, and just to be an anchor point and a constant, and to keep me to account as to when I'm being a gargantuan tit or not in life. So someone who can be an anchor point. And we've had this wonderful dynamic where she's been beautifully, monumentally present. And I talk about the gallery of who else comes forward. My beautiful daughter, Lily, and my wonderful son, Stan. Guess why I've got a son called
Yes,
Stan?
I was going to
Because I
say.
stan Laurel.
Absolutely.
But anyway, Lily's 25, a primary school teacher. Stan is just about to be 18 in about a week and a half's time. And anyway, Janie has been monumentally present and anchoring for the family, and monumentally present for the children. And there's been a sort of centripetal force. Sorry, I'm centrifugal. I blam out into the world, hunter-gathering, doing what I need to do to be creative and to go on my cut and thrust as I stay on the fucking bus, coming back to the Helsinki bus garage. And then Janie has been at the center of the clearing as the sort of centripetal anchor point. And of course, life's complicated. Centrifugal and centripetal are opposing forces. It works. So there's tension within that. But it's actually a really incredible way to keep a bit like spinning plates. If you've got a center anchoring point while your plate spins, I just think it's proved to be a very successful dynamic. And I'm delighted to, be, enamored with the fact we're still here and we're in for the long haul. And I know that I will stay on the fucking bus of that very powerful, relationship endeavor too, because it's all about relationships.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that sort of that visual image of the spinning plate and having that sort of grounding. I guess, again, that's another sort of comparison between you and I, or similarity. I think if people are out there putting things into the world, having somebody that kind of calls you back and calls you back to reality, and can be your kind of I don't know if this is the same for you and Janie, but my partner, she is the first person to tell me if I'm being a tit. I mean, because I can be. I mean, definitely. I think if you're the sort of person that is always looking for real and always looking for connection, and I've got a no bullshit filter completely, but that is quite an exposing thing, because most people have a dozen masks, don't they? And you can you could get through life without ever having to know anyone or anything about yourself, and get to the end and go, that was fine. Well, I don't really want to do fine, Chris. I want to do all of it, and as particularly on emotions. I think I was talking to my son the other day. I said, "Oh yes, I don't mind being happy. Happy is a good thing, but I don't just want to feel happy. I want to feel everything." And it's like, you can only really do that, I think, if you do have somebody in your life who's being real back. And that's when you talk about tensions. It may be a completely different tension in your home. But the tension in our home is, no, be real. I want the real emotion. I want the response. I want your actual honest truth. And that's quite powerful and can be quite tricky. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I think it's an absolutely wonderful way to live, because it's so, I don't know, enlivening, shall we say, and enriching.
Yes.
So does that relate? Do you relate to anything I've just said? Or
Absolutely, I do. And I know in your own trajectory, journey and path, you've found a wonderful relationship of true authenticity, which you decided on later, shall we say. I remember you saying it was around about 50 that you decided that this is me and this is my authentic, where I belong. So your flag in the sand of authenticity is very firmly planted in the center of your clearing, and your flag is fluttering majestic, may I say.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Well, that's cheers to Janie and Catherine then, because they, I think without them we'd be a bit rubbish, wouldn't we, Chris? Let's be honest.
I would be just a gargantuan tit fluttering about.
Good. Well, cheers to both of them. Oh, wonderful. I'm glad she's made it on the list as well. All right. Well, listen, that's the 5. What I do next in my format that I'm never going to change, because I'm staying on the fucking bus, as you like to say.
Come on.
Oh, come on. We've talked about these kind of people, and we've shared about their qualities, and you've given some insights into things that you've taken from them. But part of the format is I really force you to have to think about who is Chris Grimes in relation to these people, and what things do you specifically see in them that you can recognize in yourself, that you've taken to heart and you've taken into yourself.
What a great extra question. I think there's constancy in what I've just described. They all bring constancy. It's constancy, kindness, humor, enjoyment, glimmers. I'm just thinking of adjectives, superlatives to describe, and tenacity and persistence. Staying on the bus is a real through line. So I think I just resonate with the different attributes that they have all brought me. And, like a magpie squirreling away, squirrels. I quite like to have, yes, it's those qualities. I hope that made sense, but it's just, but enjoying yourself is the most important thing. I mean, the comedy improvisation that I still do, I get such a joy out of that. In another person that's just appeared as the squad. I've got a business partner within Instant Wit, which is a wonderful woman called Stephanie Weston, without whom I couldn't still be doing Instant Wit, because she's been the anchor point of that endeavor. So yes, I'm just mentioning another person. I borrowed another couple from the squad of five, the bunch of fives that come at you with Chris Grimes. But yes, it's each of them have got a through line of constancy, kindness, connection, and enjoyment, I think.
And I think completely, I can see that through and through. And something, when you were speaking there and you were listening, I find that even the exercise of stopping and thinking about who you are and how you've been influenced, so this process, and then I'm thinking back to when you made me think about, and you said squirrels, then it made me go back, what gets your attention? Does that kind of, I think you talk about it being the up moment where you go squirrels and your gaze is taken somewhere else. And this happened this weekend. I said in the interview with you that old people get my attention. And I had the most glorious, Catherine and I had the most glorious conversation with this old lady. We were going through the beautiful village called, there's the police. They're coming for me, Chris. So they've gone past.
I didn't hear that, actually.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I've just got some drilling. They agreed to stop between 10 and 11, and they've just started again.
Oh well, we'll get wrapped up. But no, I just want to tell you this little story because I think it's about consciousness and being conscious of things. So, you said the squirrel thing. I said old people. I'm then out in the glorious village of Shear, which is just outside Guildford, and it's most stunning, and on a beautiful sunny day. And this lady comes along with in a mobility scooter with this little dog. There's a little Jack Russell dog. And I can't resist talking to people with dogs ever. Anyway, she has a little dog called Eddie. We have a little dog called Maggie, and Eddie and Maggie start playing. And, we're chatting amiably. And it came back to me in that moment. Oh, yes, I talked about this on a podcast.
You did?
I really like old people. And do you know what I wanted to do more than anything on that conversation? Tell me everything. Like, now I know you live here. How did you get here? And she started to tell me. She said, I used to live in London and I've slowly worked out. And Catherine and I were talking on the way home. We said, isn't it interesting how old people, you always see them as they are today, but they've led their whole lives, and their whole lives, they were 20-somethings with hopes and dreams once. They may have had children. They may have had suffering of loss and grief and all the human emotions. And just taking that time to stop. So listen, I all the things you've listed there, they're very aspirational. They're things we all want. So it's like, if you do take the time to talk to people and you've got that kind of always wanting to take input, which I think you do too, same as me, you're learning and enriching yourself all the time.
Yes. And some of our stories, absolutely.
Yeah. And every interaction with another person is going to give you something. And then she made my day, this lady. Her name was Maggie too. She made my day. I absolutely came away feeling so enriched by that conversation. Good. Well, I'm glad we're on the same page with that too. I next want to know, I always ask what's next for everybody. You've shared some of your, sort of purposes, shall we say. There's a definite purpose around your podcast, around, capturing people at the end of life. Your Good Listening To show, there's a definite purpose behind it. And it's not just meeting Michael Palin, although I'm sure that is one. But it is about spreading connection and et cetera. But, how are you going to, you've got some wonderful influences here. How are you going to pay that forward specifically? Have you thought about that? What's next for you in this kind of journey?
Well, next is the cunning plan with the joy and the wonderment of genuinely helping people, is that it will give me the freedom to be a digital nomad where I can, in the next phase of my life, plug in wherever I can in the world to the internet, and then 3 or 4 or 5 or as many times as feels right in a week, I genuinely help individuals, companies, entities tell their story, amplify their brand, and with the premise of, if you tell your story out loud, you're much more likely to live it out loud. And there's just a wonderful, it is actually applying the currency of reciprocity, warmth and connection, which will then invert and give me the reciprocity back of being able to it's very important in this that I find a way, because I'm genuinely delivering a service to people, to be able to monetize it as well. And I'm genuinely helping people, and it helps me too. So it comes to that Japanese construct of ikigai, which I'm sure you know of too, that intersection, that wonderful center point between what you're good at, what you love, what you enjoy, what the world needs, and what can also earn you some money. Then that is the sweet spot. And I believe I've struck gold. Someone's told me very recently that they think I've struck gold, and it's a oasis of kindness, and it's like having a day spa for your brain. And if I can, make ends meet with that too, then I couldn't be happier.
I love that. I love the idea of you being a digital nomad. And I think it's very, very possible for you. I totally agree with your friend. I think it's the combination of all your skill sets and your history and the person that you are and all the influences you've had. 100% you could deliver that from anywhere. I'm just curious where anywhere is going to be then. Have you thought of a specific place, or it's just like, I'm just going to go, today I'll be in Barbados, and next I'm going to be...
the idea of living in, cities and towns, and, going to Florence for a couple of months, or being in the Italian Alps, just wherever it might be, just places where you've got to have a good Wi-Fi connection, but just being able to just go where you like. A bit like, where should we go today? And where's today's clearing? Or it's not quite as nomadic as that, but I'd like to have the freedom to be able to choose.
I love it.
And yes, and being on the open road of connection is a wonderful thing.
I love it, because you could even do that from your house. It doesn't matter. It's not about being physically somewhere else. I did meet a lady once. Again, it was Catherine and I. We were in Venice. It was so very beautiful Venice, and she had a laptop out. This lady, and you don't see that a lot in Venice. People are mostly got cameras out, or they're not working. So as I do, hello, why have you got a laptop out? Because I'm just curious about everyone. And she said the same thing. She said, I'm a digital nomad. I work anywhere I want. And today I wanted to be in Venice. And I was like, oh, wow. I like that. I was fascinated. I was like, how do you create a life like that? I want me a bit of that. No, I love it. And I can totally see it happening. All right, last question then. And I know we do this. I can't do it, Chris. Reciprocity.
Yes, boom, you've nailed it.
There we go.
Yes.
You call it the golden baton, I think.
Pass the golden baton, please.
That's it. So you're and I got gifted this as an idea from curiously Mark McCartney, who we mutually know, because he said to me, you should always ask at the end, who should I speak to next and why? Because your purpose is to meet more interesting people. And I went, oh, I know. And he said, just ask it then. So literally the very next one I said, so Chris Grimes, thank you for sharing all of that. Who should I speak to next and why?
Well, yes. And I might, I've just spontaneously thought, I'm going to pass you on to the wonderful old friend called Neil Bett, who I've recently had in my podcast, because he's going to reciprocate for me soon. And he's just a very decent, lovely human being, a friend of old.
Oh, wonderful.
And so he's others will occur, but he's the one that's most present at this moment.
Well, this is the one we're actually going to record, but I know we've already sort of swapped a few behind the scenes anyway. And that's how it works, isn't it? I mean, when you think about the network that we all live within, go back to intersectionality and stuff, it's like that is our own personal universe, isn't it? Where, and I don't know, I draw the most pleasure, the most excitement, interest, curiosity, everything from the people around me. And I think the fact that I'm getting a wider and wider net, I just get super excited about it.
Oh,
yes. Catherine calls it fresh meat. She's like, oh, fresh meat. And I go, yeah. And it excites me to meet new people. It is something that's...
And rather wittily, he's an actor, facilitator, singer, and an a cappella sextet.
Well,
so
I can't wait.
Working on that, as you can imagine.
All right. Well, maybe he and I can have a little sing-song as well. That would be nice. Why
the music,
not?
Maybe the connection. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much. Do stay on. I'm going to press stop in a minute, but I know you're a pro. You won't
do I get to say where people can find me, or
of course you do all of that. Yes, and I'll probably put all kinds of nice things at the beginning and end of this as well. But yes,
Sure.
plug away, go.
Yes, so check out thegoodlisteningtoshow.com, where you'll find a podcast that has a clearing, a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 54321. There's some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton and a cake. And Julia Duthie has been a majestic guest within that structure and construct. And then also legacylifereflections.com, which is the new cut and thrust. But also on LinkedIn, I do a lot of brand strand founder stories, which is, again, using the sort of gold I've struck is that I use the same storytelling construct, but go where is most helpful to my guests to help amplify them in whichever endeavor is most helpful to them. And then connect with me on LinkedIn too. Chris Grimes, I am Spartacus, your go-to partner for better, more impactful leadership, communication skills, coaching and training and storytelling. I've been Chris Grimes. Thanks very much. Good night is my plug. Thank you.
Do you know what? That was brilliant. And I've never done anything like that before. And you just give me another idea to tack on the end of each of my conversations. Because I don't know, I'm so lost in the moment. I forget there's other worlds out there and that people might want to sort of draw people to them.
Oh, comedy improvisation is instantwit.co.uk.
Instant wit, right? Okay, I've got that too. But it's like, of course, I should ask my guests at the end.
Oh,
do you want to say anything?
There's
hello,
a live.
more?
Sorry to interrupt. There's a live theatre show version of what I'm up to as well, which are called Best of Bristol Voices, and I'm interviewing. I've got Rob Brydon coming on the 5th of July to the Redgrave Theatre in Clifton in Bristol.
Wonderful. All right. Listen, I think that's a wonderful place to end this conversation. Like I say, stay on because I have to press stop in a minute. I don't want to.
And
I want
actually,
to keep going.
I've got to go lickety split because I've got to be about an hour away up the M4 to do my filming this afternoon.
I do know that, but I'm going to press stop, but just don't disappear immediately. This is what someone did the other day.
It's been a joy. Thank you.
So stay there. Bye, Chris. Well, that was Chris Grimes, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that. He's such a lovely man to talk to. He does bring the sunshine. He makes me smile just being in his presence. He's just such a good spirit. So, please do check out all his plugs at the end there. He is a very busy man, as you can tell, and there's plenty of content there for you to enjoy. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, share, leave a review, or get in touch. And maybe you can share your 5 with me. Until then, take care. Bye-bye now.